So I went to go see The Cursed, and I loved it. So I wanted to make a whole video about it, talking about the little details about it and why it's awesome and you should go see it. Now, as a horror fan, I just really crave those original horror stories. And although this one does have like a couple tropes, there are a lot of original aspects to it that I just felt like were really refreshing. So yeah, let's get into it. So The Curse takes place in 19th century France. A man arrives in a remote country village to investigate an attack by a wild animal. However, he soon discovers the much deeper and sinister force that has the manor and the townspeople in its grip. So this pathologist comes to town because he catches wind of this attack happening, and he stays with the family of the boy who is missing. So those are our main characters. So we find out that the patriarch of the family is someone who took over that land and stole it from a group of gypsies. So this part, it gets a little like, I've read online that there's some tropey racism going on as far as that goes, but you know, I see it, but I also feel like I really felt for those characters that were, whose land was being taken from them. So, and I think it raises some interesting questions like, should one's descendants take on the responsibility of the sins of their ancestors? So there's a little bit of that. It's not too preachy or anything, so it's all good. But yeah, I didn't dive too deep into the other reviews because I just don't care. I'm not really interested in other reviews. I like to, especially before the movie, I like to go in like blind, right? And just kind of make my own conclusion. That's what I took away from that part of the movie, so yeah. So kind of foreseeing their impending fate or doom, this gypsy woman places a curse on the men taking the land from them. You know, at that moment it's like, sure, rightfully so, who wouldn't? I get it. And just the way their land gets taken from them, it's just kind of like, oh, it's so sad, it's so sad. So it's like, you know, I get it, I'd curse them too, you know? It's just, why not? So then, but then things go awry when, you know, after they've settled for a bit and they've built up their town and whatnot, the kids stumble upon the grave of this woman and the very, very spooky grave of this woman, as well as the artifact that initiates the curse, which is essentially a werewolf curse. Now let's talk about these werewolves. These the whole werewolf aspect is so, it's different than I've seen in any other movie. They look different, they're kind of a different creature. They're like werewolves-ish, if that makes sense. They're really creepy. The way that the transformations happen from human to werewolf is very gross and very creepy. Probably one of my new favorite werewolf transformation scenes that I've ever seen. One little complaint I would have about them though is that the CGI is a little primitive for today's standards, I guess. But the way, you know, they show the werewolf so subtly a lot of the time, and you know, in darker kind of scenes and that kind of thing. So I feel like I can get over it if that makes sense. I much prefer practical effects to CGI, especially when it's unnecessary. You know, with the werewolf, I feel like with a little determination and elbow grease, you can make a really cool practical effects werewolf, which I'm always for. So, but there are still elements of that as well. So, you know, no big deal. Something in all kinds of movies that I am like a big hoe for is composition. So if the shots have like just great, beautiful, magical composition and lighting kind of combo, I'm just like all for it. You know, there can be a few little plot holes and I'll just be like, that's okay, it's beautiful. There are a few movies that I just love that I could essentially just watch on mute because they're just so pretty. So if a movie kind of hooks me with that, then the rest of it would have to be pretty terrible for me to dislike it. Yeah, so those parts that I like are like, it's almost like those establishing shots in each scene are they're like a landscape painting. They're so beautiful, and they have like those desaturated kind of gray tones to them all the time. And you know, that kind of like, that's what I really love about Sleepy Hollow, is that it has that like monochrome kind of coloring to it. And there's a lot of use of fog in this movie as well. So it's just makes for really great landscape shots and that kind of thing. Even though something really spooky is happening, you're like, wow. So a great contrast to the beautiful visuals is the violent gore. There is quite a bit of violent gore, but it's not like, for me, it didn't feel like it was in a gratuitous way. Like when there was violence and gore, it was there, and it was pretty intense. So that's great, but it wasn't like overdone, just like blood in your face kind of thing. I felt they really used that in a mature way. I gotta talk about this scarecrow. This movie has the creepiest scarecrow I have ever seen. It is the scariest thing. It's mostly in like, the scarecrow's mostly in dream sequences, so which can get kind of annoying, like, you know, when movies have like too many dream sequences and you're like, ugh, it's like not even real, I'm wasting my time. The dream sequences were so creepy that I didn't mind watching them, and they do have a tie-in to the plot line. So like I think everyone in the town who is cursed essentially has these similar nightmares. I think that's how that works, if I can recall. But this scarecrow is like, I don't know if you've seen, I think the movie's just called The Scarecrow, and it's like from the 80s or something. That, I don't know, it just like really creeped me out, that one. So not since then have I seen one. I don't know, I was just like so disturbed, and I felt really uncomfortable when he was on screen, so it's A+. And the way that he is created, that's probably like the most disturbing part about the Scarecrow, is the way he became a scarecrow. So won't get into it, no spoilers. Okay, I wanted to address something. So this happens in a lot of movies, mostly horror movies, but all sorts of movies I've noticed. And let me know if you've noticed this. Okay, in this movie there is a laundry scene, so like pinning up the clothes outside on the line. But have you noticed that every single time someone in a movie is putting stuff up on a line, it's always big giant white sheets. They're never like hanging up their bloomers or something like that. It's always big giant white sheets. It's like it's asking for the blood. It's just such an obvious foreshadowing of the impending doom. Filmmakers, put some actual clothes up there. I don't get it. Like why is it always big white sheets? And how many sheets do they have that they're cleaning them this often? You know, it's I don't know what's with these sheets. So that's everything I wanted to gush about this movie. It was just such a super cool, original horror movie. I liked that it was a period piece. I felt it was very refreshing to have something original like this, some original scenes and ideas. There were so many original elements in this movie that kind of it's like it's revamping, you know, a classic done 100 times werewolf story. So it's really boosting it up. If you've seen the movie, do let me know what you thought of it and what you kind of agree or disagree with. And if you haven't seen it, do check that one out. I'm scared it'll fly under the radar, but it really, really shouldn't, because it's cool.